name is Ekenna Anya-Gafu with Bay Street Capital Holdings. Wanted to make a quick video. Recently, I've noticed that the question of should I do a traditional IRA versus a Roth IRA has significantly increased for myself. And so I wanted to put this out there for general knowledge and just to hear my overall thoughts on it. Thank you. I will try to make this as interesting as possible when we're talking about investing in taxes. Overall, and I think a lot of financial professionals, we will choose a Roth over a traditional IRA. But why is that? And that's a great question if you're thinking, well, why would I want to do that? And it's for these few reasons. Number one, accessibility to the money. Perfect example, when you put money into a traditional IRA, outside of 4 exceptions, which most people won't qualify outside of buying a house, a first-time home purchase, you can remove money from an IRA without penalty. But outside of that, the other 3 generally you won't come across. But the moment you put money in a traditional IRA, now it's subject to the 59.5 or 10% penalty for taking the money out. With a Roth account, this just isn't the case. You put your $10,000 in, let's say 2 days from now, you say, actually, I want to do something else with that $10,000. You can absolutely pull the money without any type of problems. And so with that, that's probably one of the bigger reasons why I like a Roth. But there's a few other reasons that I'm very excited to share with you. Two, often when I hear people talk about Roths, they start to think, well, what if I make too much? And I often do mention that, hey, there is an income limit. However, to say that because you make too much is why you would choose a traditional IRA is just really not adequate. And the reason for that is if you're making too much for a Roth, the chances that you'll be able to take a full deduction, $6,000 for people under 50, $7,000 for people over 50, is actually not likely. And the reason for that, there's actual deduction limits for a traditional IRA. And so if you are someone who says, well, hey, I am making too much, but I'm not going to be able to get a deduction, instead of doing a non-deductible IRA, for most of my clients, we'll do is do a backdoor Roth conversion. The easiest way to put this is IRAs do not have a income limit, or traditional IRAs don't have an income limit where Roths do. So you put the money in traditional IRA, you wouldn't be able to take the deduction, but almost immediately, generally the next day, you'll take the money from the traditional IRA and then move it into a Roth. This was for a while one of those gray areas. So depending on the financial advisor you were talking to, really depended on their opinion of completing this backdoor conversion. However, since 2017 and the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, essentially this is now very black and white. You can absolutely do it, not question, and there's no type of backlash for doing this. Note, as this says, there is one situation that you should be aware of, and that's primarily around if you already have a rollover account. It essentially just operates a little different. The IRS does something where they call it aggregation. If this is the case where you have a rollover and you're making too much to put money directly into a Roth, please reach out as your situation may be a little bit more unique. And kind of moving forward, okay, tax bracket changes. Sorry, I was trying to recall what was here. And essentially with the recent tax cut changes, or the kind of the Trump tax bill, however you want to call it, from 2017, a lot of the tax brackets essentially were somewhat consolidated. And then there was an additional deduction that was given. The reason why I bring this up is with that $6,000 or $7,000, for a lot of Americans, that's no longer going to be the thing that moves them into a different tax bracket. In fact, it's probably going to take you in the same tax bracket. And quite frankly, if you're going to be in the same tax bracket, the deduction to me, in my opinion, with the current tax code, and the reason why I'm emphasizing current is tax code does very much change. There's really no benefit for putting the money into a traditional IRA at this point in time. All right, All right, more taxes free money. The reason why I would say a lot of advisors with the current tax code do recommend this is not necessarily for the accessibility to the money, but for this free money aspect. And by that, I'll kind of compare and contrast. So a traditional IRA, you put the money in. If you take it out prior to 59 and a half, where it doesn't qualify for one of those four exceptions, you are actually going to pay taxes on that and a 10% penalty. Over 59 and a half, you're still going to very much pay taxes on that, on anything that you take out. There's not necessarily a basis. It's just if you take out money after that, you're paying taxes. Also with the traditional IRA, there's something called a required minimum distribution. This is important, and this means that at the age of 70 and a half, and this number is continuously getting pushed up, at that point, you actually do need to take money out. The IRS is waving their tax stick and saying, hey, we want you to take your money out, and they'll start to require it. If you were to fail and say, well, what if you just don't do it? It's a double whammy, because then they're going to actually give you a tax in addition to making you still pull the money out. And so really not a great situation. And the thought process on this was, for a long time when people were retired, they were living off of pensions and small Social Security checks. That's no longer the case for a lot of Americans. Pensions, I believe, are close to only about 10% of Americans have it. And the likelihood that you're going to be making income at some point via investments or whatever that may be later in life is still actually pretty high. So it doesn't even necessarily mean that your tax bracket would drop, just to put that out there. Now, compare that to a Roth, the fan favorite in this, essentially with a Roth account, you can put $10,000 in. And as long as you hold the account for 5 years, so 5 years to creation and the age of 59 and a half, even if that $10,000, and I'll use a ridiculous number here, grows to $1 million, you could actually pull out $1 million and not have a tax for it. At this point in time, outside of a 529, there's very few items where you can put money into a tax deferred account and take not only your basis out or what you put in, but actually take out the growth on top of that. And so definitely something that, it's just, when it's unique, and it's unique in a positive way, you definitely want to be able to use it. And so I would say the more taxes and the free money is absolutely why most people like to do this. All right. And then there is one exception that I would say outside of, if you already have a rollover account, if as you're doing your taxes and your CPA or your tax person, whatever that may look like, says, hey, we're very close to the lower tax bracket, meaning that 6,000 or 7,000 could actually lower your overall taxes. That is actually a place where I would say, all right, go with the traditional IRA. Unfortunately, it will lock your money up, but let's say your taxes drop from 28% to 24%. Overall, you just save 4% on all of your taxes. And so definitely something that you would want to look for, and something that you would want to take advantage of. But outside of that one exception, and maybe some complexities, if you have a rollover, Roth every single time. And always want to point out there, although I'm not a tax person, well versed in taxes, but you still may want to text your CPA. Just make sure that your individual situation would be accommodating for a Roth. If there is something that you heard or you want to learn more about, please don't hesitate to reach out. Once again, my name is Ekenna. You can schedule here at the BayStreetCapitalHoldings.com/Ekenna. And also here's my phone number as well. I hope that this was helpful. Once again, I've been getting this question more and more, so I wanted to put something out there for the general person as well. Thank you for listening, and take care.